Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, October 22nd. I'm Gary Stevens. We are, by my guess, doing quick math, 10 days away, 11 days away from the November 3rd general election. And while much of the attention will be on the top of the ticket with the presidential race, there is also a race for U.S. Senate in Michigan and congressional races, state House races, but also some contested races as well for some of the other items on the ballot. Many of you have already voted. Many of you will be waiting until November 3rd to cast your ballot. And in the nonpartisan aspect of the ballot, it is a decision to be made about the 58th District Court. And one of the judges on the 58th District Court that will need to be decided in Ottawa County is that of Justice, because Susan Jonas is retiring from the 58th District Court, but one of the candidates looking to fill that seat is on the other end of our Zoom connection. She is Juanita Bocanegra, an Ottawa County Assistant Prosecutor. She joins us this morning. Juanita, welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. And for those who may have missed our earlier conversations, I sort of want to get everybody caught up to speed with who Juanita Flores Bocanegra is, what she stands for, and your position, and why you want to be the next judge on the 58th District Court.
Sure. So currently I serve Ottawa County as an assistant prosecutor. I have been doing that since 2011. Prior to joining the prosecutor's office, I was in private practice with a law firm of Rhodes McKee in Grand Rapids, where I handled all kinds of civil matters from family law to business law and general civil litigation. When I joined the prosecutor's office, or since joining the prosecutor's office, I have handled all kinds of criminal cases ranging from a 90-day disturbing the peace up to and including life without parole offenses such as murder. I really enjoy what I do as an assistant prosecutor because I have the opportunity to touch a lot of lives in my community and to make a difference. However, I am looking to serve from the bench because I think it is a different way of serving the community that I love so much. My campaign is anchored on three main things. The first of those is the balanced experience. And what I mean by balanced experience are two different things. One of them is the balanced experience between civil law and criminal law, having handled civil cases and now criminal cases, and having handled all kinds of offenses and actually trying many of those cases before a jury, which means that my experience in front of the bench is both current and relevant. I haven't just touched these cases in a minor way. But the more important aspect, or a very important aspect of that balanced experience, includes that grassroots experience, having started out as a legal secretary back in 1997, fresh out of college, and from there working my way up through the legal field to paralegal, law clerk, and eventually practicing attorney. I think it's important to have that grassroots experience. I think it has, all those experiences will allow me to identify different with members of the community and to bring a perspective to the bench that simply has not been there before, that none of the other judges are able to provide. I've worked as a migrant farm worker. I've worked out in the fields. I have picked all kinds of fruits and vegetables. I have flipped burgers and made French fries at McDonald's, served ice cream at Dairy Queen. So again, a very, very humble beginnings, very grassroots entry level positions. The second thing that is important to my campaign is my involvement in the community. I have been very involved in this community for probably more than 20 years now. My father has a second grade education. My mother has a fourth grade education. They were not able to help me with homework, let alone filling out college applications. Although in my home, my parents never spoke of if you go to college, it was always when you go to college. but it was thanks to this community, the teachers I met through elementary, middle school, and high school, and other community members that came around me and guided me and helped me fill out those, complete those college applications, that I am where I am today, in addition, obviously, to God's blessings and the support from my parents. So being involved in this community is my way of not just giving back, but also paying it forward to that next generation. I'm passionate about it. I started getting involved way before I went to law school, long before I ever thought that I would run for office. And I will continue to do that regardless of what happens in this race, because it's who I am. The third thing is integrity. It's a word that is thrown around a lot. To me, it means doing the right thing when nobody but God will know what you did or failed to do, and when nobody is looking. It means making those hard choices and turning information over to the defense, whether it hurts or benefits my case. In my personal life, it means doing the right thing, even when it means going against the flow. So in a nutshell, that is who Juanita Bocanegra is.
All right. For those who are maybe kind of wondering, and I want to get a full explanation, the 58th District Court, what does it entail? What does it encompass? And what is the purposes of the court?
Sure. So at the 58th District Court level is the beginning of all criminal cases, whether it involves a misdemeanor, which stays at the district court level from beginning to end, and that is anything that is punishable by less than a year. But even the felony cases that, like a murder case, starts at the district court level for purposes of a preliminary examination, where at that hearing, the case is then bound over to circuit court if the burden of proof is met and the evidence is there to support it. A 58th District Court judge also handles all landlord-tenant disputes, civil claims up to $25,000, and traffic offenses. So it's often called the People's Court because at the district court level, a lot more cases and a lot more people come through it than at the higher courts.
There is, and you just mentioned the term People's Court. There is a perception that those who are on the bench, like late Judge Wapner or some of the other judges they see on television or in the movies as well, that's a far cry from what actually a judge does actually do, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's much different in real life.
Indeed. If you got a question for judicial candidate and Ottawa County Assistant Prosecutor Juanita Bocanegra, she'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. There is one thing about dealing with criminal cases. There is, be it misdemeanors or felonies, there's a bit of drama to it, perhaps, and a bit of an excitement and all that. But what about dealing with some of the other, not as thrilling, tenant landlord issues or small, there's a small claims court and all that, but still there are some other issues that you're going to say, oh boy, it's Monday, I got to deal with the landlord tenant problem.
Yes, well, I think we have to keep in mind that even though the criminal cases tend to be more interesting in the sense that sometimes it reads like a soap opera or like a novel. Landlord-tenant cases and small claims civil cases are just as important to those litigants, and they are life-altering. And you're not just dealing with the two parties in front of you; you are dealing with everybody else in that person's life. So, if you're dealing with a landlord-tenant dispute and somebody is going to get evicted, that is a big deal. Somebody could end up homeless. If you're dealing with the small claims, money makes people do a lot of unusual things, a lot of weird things. And when somebody has been grieved in a way, when they've suffered a loss, that is very important to them too. So it may not be as interesting in the sense of, blood and injuries and that kind of thing, or a shooting or a armed robbery, but it is, I'm sure, still as important to those parties as it is for the victim of a criminal case.
395-1450 if you have a question for judicial candidate Juanita Bocanegra. I'm going to go a little bit more, I don't want to say abstract, but a little bit more general with the judicial questions. Do you get a sense through your experience in the district, experience in the prosecutor's office and what you've seen, do you get a sense that we're losing a little bit of respect for the judicial process in our country nowadays? That maybe, we're sort of, if decisions don't go the way we like, it's protest time. It's maybe even vigilante time. Are we getting that way that we're losing the respect for the judicial process in our country?
Unfortunately, I think we may be, and it maybe is related to the loss of respect of law enforcement in general, given the narrative across the country. But you are correct, Gary, that there is a sense of, if I don't agree with the decision of this court, then I am going to protest, or I'm not going to abide by the court's orders. Yes, and the other aspect of that sense of respect that I see once in a while is the way individuals will come dressed to court. You would not be able to tell that they're going into a courthouse. I've seen people dressed like, they're out on a Saturday night and headed to the bar. People speaking on their cell phones as, they're trying to conduct their business in the courthouse, whether they are at the clerk's window or whether they are waiting to be called as a witness. And sometimes I have seen people answer their phones in the courtroom as they are sitting in the back. And I've seen judges actually ask them to leave and had their phone taken away until the end of the proceeding.
395-1450. Let's get to the phones. You're on the line with Juanita Bocanegra.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with Miss Juanita, I have a hard time with her last name, but that she has my vote compared to her opponent. I share a lot in common with her, and I'm glad she's running. So thank you very much.
Appreciate the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. We've touched upon it before. Yeah. Flores is a little bit easier to pronounce, but Bocanegra, hey, some of us do have the half Hispanic background. We can be able to handle that. 395-1450. And we talked a little bit about, the lack of respect for the judicial process, and maybe we need to, to get back in that particular way. What about dealing with perhaps defense attorneys now? If you are elected as a judge, yeah, she used to be with the prosecutor's office. She's going to lean toward her buddies in the prosecutor's office. But how do you try to resolve the fairness issue that could come up? And they might say, hey, wait a minute, they might ask an accusing question on your way.
Well, the judge's role is to just kind of call the shots, take the law as it's written and apply it to the facts. There is a specific training for new judges that deals with leaving your role behind, whether you were a defense attorney or a prosecutor or a civil practice attorney, whatever your prior role is, leaving that behind to become a neutral party in the courtroom. So I'm sure that I will learn a lot from that training. Since day one, when I decided that I was going to run, I'm fully aware that the day, if I prevail and if I get elected, the day that I take the bench is the day that Assistant Prosecutor Bocanegra stays behind, and that role will not follow me into the courtroom. Again, I think that my background, my personal life experiences will aid in always staying true to who I am and trying to serve my community. My passion for serving community, I think, will be a great benefit as well in being able to call the shots as fairly as possible.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with judicial candidate Juanita Bocanegra.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, I can't say Your Honor yet, can I? Sometime back, there was, you were talking about the disrespect in the courtrooms, and then when people don't agree with judicial decisions, and then you went on about that, or Gary did, one of the two of you. But I remember back when there was a Latino child that was run down over here on US 31, and the I don't know, perpetrator, is that the right word, that actually ran the individual down, left the scene. And the prosecutor's office, I think, handled that in somewhat of a murky way. And I can't help believe that had the situation been differently, had the individuals been different, that here in Ottawa County, that it might have been handled differently. Were you in the prosecutor's office when that case went down?
I was in the prosecutor's office, and that charging decision, if I remember correctly, actually was made from our higher ups. I don't recall if it was Ron, our prosecutor, or our chief assistant who made that charging decision. I do remember reading the police report. I remember the public outcry, the accusations that if the roles have been reversed and the suspect or the defendant had been a person of color and the victim had been a Caucasian individual, that it would have been handled differently. Having been on this side of things, I can tell you that everything was analyzed very carefully. The police report was reviewed very carefully in terms of what charges we believed could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There was information with regard to, well, there was certainly no intent with regard to the person that was driving and hitting that poor kid intentionally. I think the issue was, how could she not have known right away that she struck a human being as opposed to striking some object? So I remember the public outcry. It was very difficult, felt terrible for the victim's family. Nothing could bring that poor kid back. It was just a poor choice on everybody involved. The lady ultimately turned herself in, but I can certainly also understand the public's concern about would things have been handled differently. I am not here to deny that racism exists across the country, or certainly here in our little corner of the world. However, I also need to be careful in my current role, and if I were to prevail, to analyze all the information, because while those cases are real and sensitive and they need to be dealt with, and those of us in positions of authority need to speak up when that happens, we also need to be careful that we don't label everything racism when the information is not there to support it. I think doing that takes away from those real cases and those real victims of racism that are there. And we can't dilute the argument or take away from it by always thinking in the negative and always thinking it's always racism. It's always, driving while brown or driving while black. There are going to be those situations. And when we cry wolf all the time, we take away from that. In this particular situation with this young man, unfortunately, he had other things on his mind, it appears like. Obviously, we don't know because we don't know what he was thinking, but just from the circumstances surrounding what happened, and he darted out in traffic thinking that he could make it across. What the driver was thinking at the time, whether she panicked and thought, I hit somebody and I'm going to take off, or I hit something but I don't realize what it was because there was a semi next to me, I guess it's something that we will never be able to prove one way or the other. But again, that charging decision was made considering all the information that was available from the police report. And I also know personally that the judge who handed down the sentence, took that matter very seriously, allowed everybody to speak and say their piece in court. And the sentence was handed down in accordance to what the judge felt was the most fair way to resolve that. Again, nothing could ever bring back that young man. And I'm sure that his family is probably still grieving his loss.
We appreciate the call. We got to get moving to one more call before we end the segment. Good morning. You're on the line with judicial candidate Juanita Bocanegra.
Hey, good morning. Not sure if this would be an appropriate topic or not, but given the recent Supreme Court ruling about Governor Whitmer's powers, I'm a little confused as to what the current status of the law is, especially regarding wearing masks in public places. I'll hang up now and listen.
I appreciate the call. Thank you very much, Juanita.
Sure. Thank you. So while the orders from Governor Whitmer have been invalidated by our Supreme Court, the current orders that are in place are from the Michigan Department of Public Health, and individuals are still required to wear masks in public spaces, especially in spaces that are enclosed. That is now through a statute that allows our health department to issue those local orders. So yes, to answer your question, people still have to wear masks, and that is something that is enforceable, and it comes now from the Department of Public Health.
And that leads to another point, Juanita, and I'll finish the conversation with this. You said, and you mentioned it, based on the law itself, interpreting the law, not trying to rewrite the law. That's the legislature's role, and maybe not the judicial role that some judicial activists, for lack of a better term, might want to do.
Exactly. So we have three different branches. We have a checks and balances system. Everything works when everybody stays within their role. A judge's role is not to legislate from the bench. A judge's role is to take the law as it's written and apply it to the facts that come before him or her.
She is judicial candidate Juanita Bocanegra. We want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. And I know we'll be chatting one more time before the November 3rd election. So we wish you well and look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thank you, Gary.
That is Juanita Bocanegra on Real News Now, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.